latest episode of Gov School Rocks, where we learn to speak rock so we can figure out what the environment's telling us about its story. Here we are walking across the James River, specifically in Richmond, Virginia. So if you look out across the river here, we're in the section of the James called the Falls of the James. And over there are some pretty intense rapids coming from the west. There's a dam over there as well. But these rapids are there because over the course of 7 miles, there's a 100-foot drop in elevation. So we call those the falls. That gradient, if you think about 100 feet over 7 miles, is pretty gradual. Makes for some good kayaking though. But it's Petersburg Granite. This is Petersburg Granite. And then over here, as you exit Richmond, you end up in the coastal plain. This is the fall line. We call it a line, but geologically it's actually a stretch. But here we're walking across the Belle Isle Suspension Bridge to Belle Isle. Some decades ago there was a bridge here that was a one-lane bridge that was taken out during a flood. But the blocks for the foundations of these piers are made from Petersburg Granite as well. Even better views of some of the falls of the James. And then across over here, all the little rocks sticking up are Petersburg Granite. Look, this pier has been undercut. Wow, look at that. You can see here across the river, the higher elevation, that used to be the floodplain of the James River, up where those houses are, those row houses, and up where the government buildings are up there. That's the old floodplain of the James River, many years ago. Likewise, at the time, 30 million years ago, Richmond would have been a coastal city. The sea level was up that high. It had been further off to the east over here, but sea level was up this high, and this would have been coastal area. That's how high sea level was 30 million years ago. This is the Hollywood Rapids on the side of Belle Isle. You can see the cracks in the granite, exfoliation, and then little potholes. These little potholes are where a pebble would get stuck, and as the water current moved around, it would swirl it around, and over time would wear a little pothole into the top of the granite.
Look!
Yep, lots of potholes, aren't there, Grayson?
That was a giant pothole.
Yep.
That was a giant rock.
And these cracks are where exfoliation is occurring, where the granite begins to break apart. Much like your skin peels off. These are both forms of weathering. And notice the granite also has a nice curved shape to it, spheroidal shape to it. That's very distinctive of granite weathering. Spheroidal weathering. This is a nice stretch of the fall zone called the Hollywood Rapids, named for the Hollywood Cemetery on the opposing shore. All the rock here used to keep the shoreline stable, quarried here on the island. There's a large Petersburg Petersburg Granite rock quarry. Just behind me here.
Dada, is that flooded here? Is that flooded here?
No, not today it's not. But there are times when the water gets this high. You see the dead leaves here and the grasses. Oh, there's poison ivy too, watch out. And this is all Petersburg Granite bedrock here, except for these emplaced boulders. This is a part of the rock quarry where some of the granite was quarried. You see places up there where they have chains bolted in for people to go rappelling and climbing. This is all Petersburg Granite here. And this is the quarry.
Under the water, Dad.
It could be.
That's kind of freaky. Don't go to any of that stuff. Ooh. Dada. Let me go this way.
This is the rock quarry. Yeah. There's an old rock quarry. Goodbye, Ethan. That's interesting. Indeed they do. There's bolts up there. Yep. You guys can give it a shot if you want. You can see the drill marks where later on they drilled holes and put dynamite or explosives in. Here we have an abandoned building of some kind.
Dad, guess what? And we're playing Minecraft, and we're on a server, and there's a game called Factions that Joey and I are playing, and there's actually someone who made a hobbit hole in it. That's where they're living, a hobbit hole.
Yeah?
They live very close to us, and they're literally living right in a hobbit hole that they made. It's actually very cool. I destroyed it because they killed me though. So I destroyed their hobbit hole. Wait, are we already done?
Oh, this is a Belle Isle rolling, milling, and slitting manufactory. The arched doorway, mules pulled carts of scrap iron from England. Water powered the machinery. European immigrants and black slaves provided the labor. The nails, wire, and horseshoes were famous throughout the South. So they made nails, wires, and horseshoes from recycled iron that came from England here. This is a door through which mule-driven carts would go.
Dad, do you think it's possible for us to find a...
There's a long history of ironworks on Belle Isle. So we saw places where they recycled iron prior to the Civil War and probably during the Civil War as well. Right across the river here, we're headed back towards Tredegar Ironworks. This was Old Dominion Iron and Steel Company, the Chrysler building. So the tall design over here, thick I-beams and a mix of different sized pieces. This is one of the first factory buildings constructed by the ODIS. Yeah, got a little frog. Cool, a little tiny frog. Probably in the early 1900s, ODIS was famous for its advanced metallurgy and fine casting, important in fabricating complex structures like heat exchangers. During World War I, the hatches for tanks were made for Chrysler motors, and the structure became known as the Chrysler Building. So they made tank hatches for World War I tanks here, among other things. Here we're going to get back on the suspension bridge to go back from Belle Island to Richmond.
Dad!
Yeah.
You can spell correctly.
They could at least spell it correctly, right?
That would be better. Well, actually, no. It's better that it's not spelled correctly because now it's 2.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what?
if the river level's above 9 feet, they close it. Richmond was a place where they made cannon and all kinds of manner of iron materials. Perhaps some of that iron came from the Shenandoah Valley. This National Park Service site, Tredegar Iron Works, was an important site during the Civil War and before as a place where iron was manufactured. Alright, well that takes us to the end of our tour of Belle Isle and environs. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. Alright guys, we're back from Richmond, back from the fall zone, and I wanted to just sort of go over briefly the kinds of rocks that we found. We found examples of the Petersburg Granite. If we look really closely, we can see the different minerals in the granite. The pink minerals are orthoclase feldspar, the black minerals are probably biotites, and the white minerals are likely quartz. So this is a very typical granite and primarily what was being quarried on Belle Isle. Here's a more weathered version of that, and you can see the changes that have occurred in the minerals as they weather. If I were to break this open, I might see some bits that are still original, but generally this is what it looks like before, this is what it looks like in the process. While we were there, we also talked about some of the historic iron industry that occurred there. Right across the river is Tredegar Iron Works, which is probably where a lot of the Shenandoah Valley iron eventually ended up. But here we have slag, chunks of slag from that. This may have been a chunk. This is a pretty iron-rich chunk, very, very heavy. We also have chunks of slag, and you can see the air, places where the air got trapped. So it's kind of vesicular in its texture. And then you have others that have kind of a unique sort of shape to them. But this slag is just a waste product, a byproduct of the process itself. So a place like Belle Isle has a lot going on, and that fall zone happens to be a very important location in terms of not only the geology of the area, but also industry and commerce. There's a lot of stuff going on in the Richmond. It's the same way all the way up and down the fall zone, whether you go to Fredericksburg, the Washington, D.C., the Potomac, the Falls of the Potomac area, or areas on down south. So again, these are great examples of the geology interacting with human society and human society interacting with the geology. Until next time.